All right. Let's let's see what all the fuss is about. What are we on about? What are we doing? What are we here for? Yo. Okie dokie. Yet do we really have to do this? Hey, listen, if the speech turns out to be boring, then I can just go. I can just leave. It's like I'd say there's a 90% chance this is just like the standard I'm the most wronged man in the universe. Everyone is mean to me, etc. Probably it's probably going to be that. But maybe not, you know. And if it's not, then we should watch it. I have the live stream up. In the meantime, let's take a look at this MSNBC video that I was pitched earlier but didn't have time for. Pissed that I fell for it. Ex-Trump supporters explain why they left the MAGA movement. I'm sure this should be good. Or maybe it'll be boring.
There are growing signs that President Trump's MAGA base is fracturing, with high-profile defections by former Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene and influencer Ashley St. Clair.
CNN, ABC, and NBC are all refusing to air it. Pretty unprecedented. Damn. Okay. Maybe it will be spicy with all this lead up to it.
Recent polling that indicates that the overall number of people who identify as Republican is shrinking. But for the diehard, leaving MAGA isn't easy.
That's actually an insane drop. 6 percentage points over 2 years. That's fucking insane. That's like a 20% reduction basically in how many people identify as Republicans. This is why I say you can't go off of who identifies as a Republican for like Trump support, because definitionally a Republican is somebody who supports Trump.
As Republican is shrinking. But for the diehard, leaving MAGA isn't easy. When you were a part of the MAGA movement, how deep were you?
I was as deep as anyone could have been. I was an aspiring MAGA pundit. I had bylines in places like Fox and The Federalist. I spoke at Trump groups. I was a donor on the campaign. I was unapologetically a MAGA and Trump supporter.
Rich Logus is the founder and CEO of Leaving MAGA, a nonprofit for those disillusioned by the movement. The group, which Logus says is funded entirely by small donors, provides support groups, de-radicalization resources, and a platform for members to share their experiences.
After I left in 2022, I realized that because MAGA is a community itself, to leave, I thought that I should build a community for people who also decide to leave. When I left MAGA, I had nowhere to go.
To get a better understanding of what makes people leave MAGA.
Literally a cult? Yeah, it is literally a cult. It's just like, I don't know, I hate you. It's like it's not the problem. Okay, listen. Let me be a little bit more explicit with my language here. There are a lot of people who were pro-Trump or are pro-Trump because they were raised into it in the same way that a lot of cult leaders raise people into it, or members of cults. That is to say, like, they were groomed into it. They were born into a family that groomed them into it. They were, like, subjected to overwhelming social pressure. This is a real thing, right? I understand that. I think that, like, I'm willing to offer, like, a kind of ethical carve-out for these circumstances, in the same way that I wouldn't really morally impugn somebody for being a former member of a cult, like, under those circumstances. But there's a really, really big difference between, like, 18-year-old who just left the cult and, like, 45-year-old who got into it at 37 because they really liked the explicit political message. That's also the thing, like, cults traditionally kind of hide and layer the negative information about the cult. Like, the outward message in the cult is like, well, we have a community, forgiveness, nature, you know, communion with God, whatever. There's like an outer shell, and the inner shell with cults invariably is like pedophilia, right? It's always what it gets down to. The problem is that for MAGA, the pedophilia is on the outside. Like, everything bad about MAGA is on the outside. It's not like hiding it under an outer shell. It's really, okay, Trump's live. Okay, all right. Well, is he? Because this is the White House feed. What feed are you using? Ah.
Good evening. Before we begin, I'm proud to report that our country is safer, stronger, and far wealthier than it has ever been before.
Okay.
We are doing great. Less than 2 years ago, we inherited an economic and social disaster. After the worst inflation in 48 years, the wide open borders with millions and millions of people pouring in from all over the world, including criminals of all types, and
the Omni speech,
11,888 murders, many of whom killed more than one person. We had transgender for everybody, men and women's sports, crime ravaging our cities, and the whole world was laughing at us as a nation, but not anymore. 2 years ago, our country was dead. Now we are the hottest country anywhere in the world. America is respected like we have never been respected before.
Literally just 1-to-1 so far with every other speech.
We have more money being invested in the United States than at any time in the history of our country. More Americans are working today than ever before. This week it was announced that inflation saw the largest monthly decline in more than 6 years. Just happened. It was just given out. The media reported it, and we accept it. The best in 6 years. The tax cuts in our great, big, beautiful bill are saving hardworking families thousands and thousands of dollars, like with the provisions, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security for our great seniors, along with the interest deduction on a loan used to purchase a car, but only if that car is made in America, and a 100% expensing for our job-creating businesses. Our stock markets are at their highest point in many years, but we can actually say of all time. And your 401ks, pensions, and retirement accounts are setting records every single day, the highest in history. For years, we paid the highest price for prescription drugs anywhere in the world. Now we pay the lowest price under my most favored nation's policy because I was able to get the rest of the world and the pharmaceutical companies to act responsibly. Drug prices are coming down by 70, 80, and 90%. TrumpRx.gov.
I know. Maybe he moves on to something else.
The cost of health care, you have to go to TrumpRx.gov and take advantage of it. But the cost of health care is coming way down because of what we've done with prescription drugs. And with Trump accounts, every child in America now has access to a tax-free investment account to save for their future.
Into the market.
Billions and billions of dollars are being invested, put in by companies and individuals to take care of our children so that at age 18, they will have potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in their account, and they'll get off to a great start in life. So for that, go to TrumpAccounts.gov and sign up your child or any child who'd like to sign up. Our previously wide open borders have been transformed into the most...
I bet all the people over at like CNN and ABC feel stupid now. They're like, damn, we missed out on some free ratings covering the one Trump speech. Sorry, you're not missing anything right now. Maybe he moves on to something more meaningful in a little bit. For right now, we're just, you know, we're on the standard. It's the same speech every time.
In the history of our country, and now we have the best. Crime is plummeting nationwide with the murder rate at its lowest level since 1900. Or more than 125 years ago. We're making a record investment in our armed forces, and we have the strongest and most powerful military by far anywhere in the world. I built it during my first term, and unfortunately, we're forced to use it now. We won in Venezuela, which is now working with us to produce...
Is this a rerun? Genuinely, this could have been recorded at any point in the past 2 years. We would not know. We would have no idea. They could blindside us with this, you know?
America is back and doing really well, but we still have a major challenge that must be urgently addressed. because no country can be great without fair and honest elections. You have to trust your country, because if there can be no trust, there can be no greatness. And that's very simple. No trust, no greatness. For many years, I've called for bold, swift, and decisive action to protect the integrity of America's elections. Every American deserves to know that when they cast their vote, that vote will be counted accurately in a system, and that is to make that system secure.
Maybe we're getting to it
one
now.
where cheating and interference are not just difficult, but virtually impossible. Unfortunately, the system we have today falls catastrophically short of that standard. Tonight, I'm announcing the immediate declassification and release of critical intelligence, revealing shocking vulnerabilities in our election infrastructure. This evidence shows that the election system we have dangerously exposes, and really exposes like levels never thought possible, to hacking, exploitation, and foreign interference. Just as disturbingly, this vital information has for many years been covered up and hidden from you, the American people, our beautiful, our great American people. But that all changes right now. The documents we will release starting tonight have been gathered by the White House Government Transparency Task Force, a great group of people, along with the staff of the President's Intelligence Advisory Board, supported by our top intelligence agency chiefs, who have all personally reviewed the findings. We are presenting this evening and fully confirmed their authenticity. You can see these documents for yourself at whitehouse.gov. That's whitehouse.gov. Go check it out.
Is it on the front
Our purpose
page?
in disclosing this information is not to weaken confidence in
The
elections.
page is lagging.
but
Everyone went to it at once.
Earn that confidence by confronting vulnerabilities and correcting them very, very quickly. And that's what we're doing. The documents cover 5 major areas of concern. First, they show that over a period of years, starting during the 2020 election cycle, the People's Republic of China carried out what is believed to be the largest compromise of election data in history, resulting in China's illicit acquisition of 220 million U.S. voter files. That information includes names, addresses, phone numbers, political party preferences, and other sensitive data that would be needed to register to vote and engage in other nefarious activities, which is exactly what was happening. This data loss presents an unprecedented election security nightmare. The intelligence even shows that China assigned a data exploitation unit specifically to this new project. Compounding the travesty, the second set of documents we are releasing reveals that members of the deep state, very, very famous group of people, in many cases, in our intelligence agency work to actively suppress and downplay information about the extent of China's sinister election meddling, covering it up from both the president and the American people like nobody thought was possible. U.S. spy agencies began learning about the compromise of voter registration files in 2020 when they discovered that tens of millions of voter data, think of that, tens of millions of voters' data in 18 states have been bought, stolen, or hacked by China. Yet those responsible for sounding the alarm instead kept the information secret and hidden. They did not disclose to me as president or to anyone else, and to the best of our knowledge, they did not inform Congress. In fact, all they kept saying is, this is the most secure election in the history of our country. A standard, very pat line that was divvied out to say. The cover-up of this colossal security breach
we're doing voices.
is even more disturbing in light of the additional information showing that China engaged in other election-related activities to undermine my first administration and our 2020 campaign. they did not want, and they just didn't want it. They fought like hell not to have it, Donald Trump, to win, and for good reason. As the documents we
Is
are
the evidence
releasing
real or
show,
fake?
CIA reporting
We'll look over it.
explicitly stated, and I quote, in mid-2018, the Chinese Communist Party's policy was to leverage all domestic and foreign elements that were opposed to the U.S. president in an effort to reduce the U.S. president's votes and make him resign or prevent his re-election. Isn't that nice? Also, in mid-2018, China was working to influence the results of the U.S. midterm elections and later the results of the 2020 presidential election itself. Separately, in mid-2019, the
If it
Chinese
was real,
government's
it's not
strategy
fucking
against
real,
the United
dog.
States
Why even entertain the
was
hypothetical?
focused on undermining domestic confidence in the U.S. president. They wanted to just make you sound like your president wasn't so hot, when actually your president has done a great job, and they did everything possible to do exactly that. Going on, this document says, and this is by the CIA, the strategy included efforts to use Chinese contacts with big U.S. companies to influence U.S. business leaders to turn against the President of the United States of America.
Called the pre-market.
The Chinese government sought to identify U.S. journalists who had reported negatively on the U.S. president and pay them large sums of money to write more negative articles about him, as many as they could, and they didn't care what they said. The Chinese government wanted U.S. president to lose the next election, and the reason they wanted me to lose is because they knew I was wise to them, charged them billions and billions of dollars worth of tariffs, and built the strongest military anywhere in the world. We have the strongest military anywhere in the world. These are exact quotes from the CIA reporting. The name of the person doing the quote is now under review, but it gets even worse. Raw intelligence obtained by the FBI in 2020, yet buried by rogue bureaucrats, stated that China's activities even included an attempt to manufacture illegal ballots for Joe Biden. Documents show that during this period, dozens of significant CIA and NSA reports about China's election targeting were kept out of the presidential briefing. These were briefings I would get almost every day. Everything was kept out that was of importance. One email among intelligence analysts admitted that they had, quote, deliberately massaged the presidential daily briefing to withhold information regarding Chinese activities related to the election. Another official inside the FBI wrote that she was running, quote, a shadow government, unquote, to keep intelligence about China's election meddling from becoming known and to keep it away from the honorable press. Other officials who witnessed such efforts perceived the motivations to be blatantly political. Recently, we found significant numbers of burn bags in formation, and this is a group of bags that were used to destroy information given by President Barack Hussein Obama to be burned. It was supposed to be burned. These bags were supposed to be at a different level by different people, incinerated and checked, but it never happened. Maybe we got lucky. We believe this was not done on purpose, but rather through gross incompetence of the people that was supposed to burn the bags. But the findings are stunning. Today, I'm asking the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the Department of Justice, the FBI, and the CIA
We don't currently
to
have
investigate how and why such crucial information was hidden,
Look into
to
it.
fire those involved in the cover-up, and to file criminal charges, if appropriate, against these people. Yet concealing China's meddling was only the beginning. The third set of documents we are
1/10 of the way
releasing
in, man.
proves that for many
It's
years,
never gonna end.
Americans were blatantly lied to about the security of our election infrastructure, including electronic voting machines and ballot counting systems. Dishonest, almost all. They're vulnerable and they're easily compromised, and people within our government knew that. Tonight, we're publishing a series of previously classified U.S. intelligence community assessments and other reports proving that our government has long known these machines are extremely exposed to attack. As one assessment states, we judge that the United States adversaries, including at a minimum Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, as well as non-state groups,
This feed's actually AI. It's being generated live. This is like the what was it? The like AI generated Seinfeld episode Twitch channel where you could just watch it indefinitely. Yeah.
The capability
There's plenty of
to
material on
compromise
it.
U.S. election infrastructure. That's unquote, but that's some statement, isn't it? Made by supposedly great patriots of our country.
This is their Omnis segment. Yeah, it all
goes
comes
on
back
to
to this.
further state that, quote, we assess that centralized election-related data repositories, such as voter registration databases, poll books, and other official election websites, are most vulnerable to exploitation, and adversaries could use this access to these systems to disrupt election processes within the United States of America. Tonight, we're releasing all of those findings, and spanning from January 2020 to June 2026. This is a cyber threat aimed at the very heart of our democracy. Many people have questioned whether it could actually be possible to electronically manipulate vote totals or change election results on these terrible machines. Today, we are releasing documents that show the CIA obtained reporting of a specific plot to do a big number in favor of the corrupt Maduro regime in Venezuela. And that's exactly what happened, conspiring to digitally rig their own country's elections in 2020, and that's what they did. This reporting included precise details about methods to regime develop to
That was
digitally
fucking
alter
funny.
vote totals in ways that could not be detected even with an audit, no matter how deep they went. This intelligence underscores why we must take urgent action to ensure that our own system can never, ever be hacked or compromised like it was in the past. The fourth set of documents reveals that even when significant evidence of fraud has been detected, it has been buried and covered up. Among the disclosures tonight are FBI files detailing evidence of alleged fraud by a large-scale voter registration operation in Michigan. In 2020, Michigan State Police raided a Democrat Get Out the Vote organization, corrupt group in Muskegon. And we're so concerned by what they found. They were just so concerned, they couldn't believe it, actually, that they contacted the FBI in Detroit. The documents state that some canvassers admitted to FBI agents that they signed voter registration forms in other people's names.
Like I said, we'll
Submitted
go over
fraudulent
the evidence when he's
registration
done.
for
We're just
people who
watching it
did
live
not
right now.
exist, and received gift cards tied to their number of applications that they produced. In other words, it was pay, play, and cheat. The FBI agents working on the case believe that crimes were committed, yet the Biden Department of Justice slow-walked the investigation and killed it. Tonight, I'm asking the FBI director to ensure that the matter is fully investigated and to work with the Department of Justice to prosecute those responsible for any crimes. Finally, to reveal just how vulnerable our elections continue to be, we are releasing the results of a stunning investigation by the Department of Homeland Security. According to the DHS review of state voter rolls and public records, they identified approximately 278,000 non-citizens who are registered to vote in federal elections. Since Democrat states refuse to share their voter files, the real number is actually much higher than that. Yet, even this limited analysis found more than 250,000 foreigners illegally registered to vote. Put together, these disclosures reveal an election system so broken and so vulnerable that no one can possibly defend it. It is not defensible. Hundreds of millions of U.S. voter files are in the hands of foreign governments. Our machines and ballot counting systems are exposed to hacking and manipulation and corruption. China and other countries have...
What are you going to do about this? Well, so far, what he's going to do about it is invite the FBI, DOJ, and Homeland Security to investigate it. So far, we have absolutely nothing.
In trying to meddle in our elections, evidence of fraud has been buried. Hundreds of thousands of non-citizens and dead people are listed and active on the voter rolls, and yet we still have elections with no voter ID, no proof of citizenship, and tens of millions of ballots floating aimlessly through the mail. As one example of the insanity, California's recent election for mayor of LA and governor was held on June 2nd, a long time ago, but it was just completed a few days ago on July 10th. Think of that, much more than 1 month. Took a month to count the votes. I wonder what they were doing. This is worse than any third world country. There's no third world country that...
MAGA might attack voting centers because Trump said there's fraud. I don't know if you remember this, but the last time there was an election while Trump was president, he led an insurrection on the Capitol building. So I was expecting attacks on voting centers anyway, to be honest with you.
As elections like
that was the last time there was an election while Trump was in office.
NBC and ABC Fake News have both said that they would not cover this speech. They knew what it was about because of the fact that they don't like the topic, because they know how corrupt our system is and they don't want to reveal it. They and others in the media are part of a plot. They want to continue this fraud for whatever reason. They want to keep it going. They want to protect the radical left. They can't have a great country, and that's true. You can't have a great country without free and fair elections. Fraud like this should mean a revocation of their licenses. They use our public multi-billion-dollar in value airways for absolutely no money. They pay nothing. All we want is honesty in our elections and honesty in reporting. They pay nothing for multi-billion-dollar assets. Great damage has been done to our country. Our elections were left vulnerable to being rigged and stolen, and the trust of the American people was lost. This cannot be allowed to continue. Every American, whether you're a Republican, Democrat, Independent, or otherwise, should be able to agree that we deserve the most secure, honest, and fair election system anywhere in the world. Secure elections should be a partisan, really, we should be
bipartisan?
Together. Democrats, Republicans, Independents, everybody. And it should not be a partisan issue. It should cause to unite us, not to divide us. This should be a cause. We should be united, not divided. In light of the brand new and irrefutable information.
He sounds so fucking upset. Like, in spite of everything, it does bring me a lot of joy to know that he actually is upset that people don't like him. Like, I do think there's a bit of genuineness behind all of this, in the sense that, like, he actually cannot mentally handle the idea that people just fucking despise him.
I have revealed tonight, my administration is in the process of notifying the states whose election data was compromised by the People's Republic of China. And
could have been an email.
Others. We will be working closely to mitigate any harm, and we're taking swift action to ensure that sensitive voter data is better protected so we can never be bought, we can never be hacked, and we can never watch a stolen election again. Tomorrow, the Secretary of Homeland Security will hold a briefing to outline his department's recent work confirming cyber vulnerabilities in our electronic voting systems. They are bad. We're in the process of informing governors, senators, and members of Congress of potential issues in their states. If you look at voting today, it's in such bad shape in so many states, and we are committing to fix it.
It could have been a truth post. This could have been a truth post that I paid a $100 a month subscription to see 2 microseconds earlier than everyone else. I agree.
And we're also committing to be working with those states and local jurisdictions to help them fix and patch known technical vulnerabilities before the midterm elections. We have very important elections coming up. We want those elections to be honest. I've also ordered DHS to notify every state about non-citizens on their voter rolls and direct them to remove all.
Okay, I'm sorry. This is really stupid. I've been linked multiple times to the White House page that details the information that he's going over here. This was the first one that I opened up, the election integrity page, and this is one that was just linked to me right here. And if you look between these two, there's exactly one change they've made in the past 15 minutes to this website, and it's they removed key right here. Below, you can download key documents and reports addressing key areas of election integrity, and they were like, only one key. Below, you can download documents and reports addressing key areas of election integrity. Nothing sells the credibility of this drop that they're still like live editing it for redundancy. Jesus Christ. So embarrassing.
Ineligible voters from the lists immediately. But most importantly, addressing this crisis of election security demands that Congress must pass the Save America Act.
Uh-huh.
How easy is that to do unless you want to cheat? The only reason you wouldn't do it.
Like, I think he's genuinely upset. I really do think he's being sincere here. I mean,
and your candidates are so pathetic that you can't get away or can't get elected any other way. This landmark bill requires that all voters must show photo voter ID. How simple is that? Could I have your photo, please? Photo voter ID. All voters must provide proof of citizenship. Are you a citizen of our country, please? And hopefully there will be no corrupt mail-in ballots, which if you watched California and so many other places, mail-in ballots are inherently corrupt. So you would have no mail-in ballots except for illness, disability, military deployment, or travel if you're going away on business or vacation. These reforms are urgently needed to stop the vulnerabilities that I've mentioned. To all Americans, I ask you to pick up your phone tomorrow, call your representatives in the House and Senate.
So that's the only thing that's happening here. This is just another excuse to beg for the passage of the SAVE Act.
And demand
he's begging.
that they
He's fucking
pass
begging.
the Save
Hands and knees.
America Act without delay. Together we will restore faith and confidence in our country, and we will be bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. Thank you. God bless you.
That's really it.
God bless our great military, and God bless America. Thank you very much.
Jesus Christ. Okay, so it's just him begging to pass the SAVE Act. He has been throwing a tantrum over this for months. He tried to hold up the bipartisan housing bill, which ended up passing without his signature. It's literally just, please, God, please, pass the SAVE Act. Please, I beg of you, please. Yes. The Hill, Senator Tom Tillis. From today, goes scorched earth on Save America Act, threatening to stall it. If I see a reconciliation bill come from the House with another failed attempt to confuse this election, I'll use every device I have available to slow down the wheels of government until people cop a clue and do the math, Tillis said, nearly shouting on the Senate floor. They don't like it. They don't like it. They don't like the SAVE Act. That's it, man. Really? It's just to fucking... It's just to beg for the passing of the SAVE Act? Did he really not yoink the Georgia senators? He didn't even fucking mention them. That was so embarrassing. Oh my God. Why don't Republicans like the SAVE Act? Because it's horribly written. It might not even benefit Republicans. If the SAVE Act was passed, it's possible it ends up disproportionately disenfranchising Republicans because Republicans are far less likely to have a passport. And also because Republicans are more likely to be old and married, the women who have changed their last names are more likely to have trouble when they get to the voting booth. If the SAVE Act gets passed, it's possible that it does disenfranchisement for them. But he's so insistent. Oh, not to mention, it's just totally unworkable. Why would Tom Tillis want the elections to run smoothly? Again, it mostly hurts Republicans, I'm pretty sure. Do you think he misunderstands what the SAVE Act is? I don't think he knows anything. I don't think he knows anything. I think he thinks that he really did get cheated out of a win in 2020 and that he's trying to fix it. I think he's genuinely mad about it. I think that he thinks that his actual approval rating is probably in the high 80s. He's so gone. Anyway, I was skimming over this while we were listening, and like, there's really nothing here. China's acquisition and exploitation of American voter data. Members of the deep state in our intelligence agencies work to actively suppress and downplay information about the extent to China's sinister election meddling. I am not downloading a fucking zip file from the White House. I'm not doing it. Are you fucking kidding me? That's it. This is the whole page. This is the entire page. That's it. Don't worry, Vosh. I did it. It doesn't work. Briefly explain the SAVE Act for those who don't know. Wouldn't it be easier for you to admit you don't know what the SAVE Act is? Come on, be humble. Be humble. Like, when I say it's complicated, I usually then admit, like, it's because I don't get it. You know what I mean? The SAVE Act is just I mean, broadly, just like, if you want to vote, you need a photo ID with you. But like, leaving aside the constitutionality of this to begin with, considering the fact states run their own elections, like, a lot of people don't have licenses that actually reflect their last name. It also means, like, if you don't have a passport, or if you're a woman who got married and your last name changed, you might need to provide your birth certificate. It's just a whole mess. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't help. Who's going to believe this? Every Republican. Not that it matters. Anyway, yeah. Okay, so it's just him begging for the fucking SAVE Act. That's it. That's really it. Yeah, photo ID and citizenship, and you need a birth certificate and a name change. Yeah. It's just a pain in the ass. I was expecting something solid. Why? Why would you expect that? Passport ownership, Democrat versus Republican. Yeah. Republican voters would be disproportionately impacted by proof of citizenship mandates. Yeah, the states that have the lowest rate of owning a passport are the Republican states. Look at this. West Virginia, 78% have no passport. Mississippi, 77%. Alabama, 70%. Arkansas, 69%. Kentucky, 69%. Louisiana, 68%. Oklahoma, 64%. But they all have birth certificates, so this wouldn't really affect them. Dog, a lot of people have no fucking idea where their birth certificate is. It's a single document, unlaminated, that you get printed out when you're born. Also, like, a lot of people just wouldn't be aware of the change. You realize your average Republican voter is genuinely subhumanly stupid, right? They're probably thinking the SAVE Act, like, magically makes it impossible for illegals to vote or whatever. And then they would go to the voting booth with no documentation, and they'd be like, well, every election I just put my name down when I filled out the ballot. What's different? And then they'd, like, shoot up the place or something. It's not doing anything. It's not doing anything. The SAVE Act is dumb, and it's not going to happen. Jesus, man. Look, 55% of Republican voters and 52% of Trump 2020 voters reported they lacked a valid U.S. passport. Meanwhile, Democratic-leaning states tend to have the highest number of U.S. citizens with valid passports. 23% of citizens in California lack a valid U.S. passport. 23% versus 78% in West Virginia. So again, like, it wouldn't help them. And there's nothing here. Your terms are acceptable. You can order another one. It should only take 2 weeks for it to come in the mail. Okay. So to reiterate, the problem with mandating IDs for voting is that, for one, your vote is already checked against your voter registry. Like, you can show up and fill out whatever bullshit you fill out. Your ballot is checked against the registry of valid voters in that state. Your address, your name, it's checked against it. So we already have a system for determining the authenticity of a ballot. It's pretty effective. For two, when we're talking about hundreds of millions of people potentially voting, I mean, a large number, maybe not multiple hundreds of millions, but in excess of 100 million, any obstacle to voting is a multiplicative effect. Even the tiniest obstacle can prevent millions of people from voting. Now, I can tell you with 100% certainty that even if every American citizen receives a birth certificate when they're born, if it was required to bring your birth certificate to vote, that would cut the total number of valid votes in half, or worse. The reason for that is because people just wouldn't do it. They would show up. They have not been following the news. Most people don't. They would show up and do it the way they've always done it, without a birth certificate, and they'd be told, you need your birth certificate, and they'd go, dag nabbit, and they'd go home and not vote. People are stupid and lazy. Probably more than half. It'd be like 1/3. 1/3 of the number of votes you would have otherwise. I'm sorry, I'm a Canadian. We already have to show a photo ID that has our address, or a bill that has our address that matches our voter card that arrives in the mail. We don't really have a problem. Okay, so again, in America, we don't get a voter card by default. You have to manually register to vote, and the ID that you bring is not necessarily guaranteed. That's one. Also, keep in mind, a birth certificate is not photo ID. A birth certificate would only complement an ID. A lot of people don't have licenses. You can get a state license, but there's no guarantee. We don't have a national ID. The closest thing we have is a social security card. Secondly, changes in the rules disenfranchise people. That's the point. It's insane they don't issue your ID to you in the mail. Yeah, well, it's a stupid fucking country. It's a stupid idiot country, and it's always been stupid. It's a stupid country. It's Republicans who try to prevent federal IDs? Yes, because they want to disenfranchise predominantly non-white voters. By selecting for which kinds of state IDs are valid, you can engage in specific forms of voter disenfranchisement on a state level. That's what North Carolina tried to do, and then succeeded, remember? By selecting which state IDs you accept as valid, and tailoring those to which kinds of groups have those state IDs disproportionately, you can disenfranchise other groups, even if there's no innate racial bias. It was such a nothing burger that even Fox News doesn't give a shit. Yeah, the Republican establishment hasn't been super gung-ho for this because, like, in part, it would also disenfranchise them disproportionately. Like, this is a Trump thing. Trump is the one who's obsessed with this. It's like tariffs. Like, tariffs is a Trump thing, you know? Republicans might go along with it, but overwhelmingly, tariffs are a Trump thing. The SAVE Act is the same.
Anyway, I should thank you so much for that summary. We appreciate it. We have a ton of other breaking news and developments tonight. One starting in the Middle
Moving on.
East. This is a Fox News. Anyway,
Moving on.
Also heard the president make claims that electronic voting machines are vulnerable and easily compromised. Fox News has not seen that evidence yet, is not in a position to evaluate the accuracy of the president's statements and claims at this time.
Yeah, not very gung-ho. Kind of wish he had the balls to do something to speed this shit along. There's not really much he can do. In America, elections are managed at the state level. The federal government has essentially no power here. The most the federal government can do is try to provide incentives to certain kinds of state-level policy, but even that's dicey and easy to challenge in court. Not a guarantee. The most he can do, and what he's probably going to do, is find some excuse to push Republican governors to further disenfranchise their voters and or send, like, you know, ICE agents to polling stations. Are you not concerned about the midterm / our voting systems? Real question. I mean, sure, but like the red states have always engaged in voter disenfranchisement. Yeah. Like, do you mean, will there be cheating? Yes, Texas is a massively undemocratic state. Texas disenfranchised potentially millions of voters in 2024, and to a lesser extent in 2020, by selectively closing voting booths in areas that they knew would get majority Democrats. North Carolina too. Republicans do this. Red states do this, yeah. But that's already been happening. In terms of the Trump administration's like ability to federally meddle, I mean, maybe. Not impossible. It can definitely happen. This point's probably the most obvious debunking. I really don't feel a need to debunk anything unless specific claims are made, you know? There's really nothing there. Makes me feel slightly better. Well, there's going to be a bunch of cheating. It's just there always has been. Democrats will win the midterms, probably by a lot, but not as much as we would like them to. And then by 2028, the country will be gone anyway, so who cares? It's a bit of an overstatement, but only a little bit. So, you know, whatever. What do you want from me? He sounded desperate. He did. Trump is probably despondent because he knows he's going to get blown out in these midterms. And also he knows the Republican Party is not going along with the SAVE Act, which he's upset about. He's close to lame ducking. I think he's been lame ducking for a while now, you know? Pretty pathetic for a president to do a national address begging. Good example of how undemocratic Texas is. It's a big-ass article. Fuck that. You should get a fan or something in here? Maybe. All right, well, yeah. Seems like kind of a nothing burger. All he's really done is direct federal agencies to investigate it, but if there was anything, you know, worth bringing to court, he would have brought it to court already. There's not really anything you can... You know, that's it. I guess we should finish that video we were looking at, the MSNBC, like, getting out of a cult video. Can the editors cut in here? Let's, like, close the loop. Let's close the loop. What I was saying was, before I was so rudely interrupted by the President of the United States, is that, like, I understand that MAGA is a cult, but there is a big, big, big difference between falling for a cult when you're young and when you're older. And also, unlike a regular cult, MAGA doesn't really hide how bad it is. You know what I mean? Like, MAGA pretty openly expresses itself. They're not really, like, hiding it. So I don't know. I kind of just, like, hate all Republicans, current and former. I don't know what you want. It depends on when. It depends on when. If a person voted for Trump in 2016 and since then has been like, fuck, that was retarded. Like, I'm not going to, you know, but like if you voted for Trump in 2024, post January 6th, post COVID, you voted for Trump in 2024, like, come on. Like, how limitless does my patience have to be? Like, Jesus Christ. Anyway,
we heard
these are
from an
all
array
older
of the
people.
group's members.
I grew up really poor, so a lot of my friends' parents would be responsible for helping me get to prom or making sure I had, you know, new shoes for school, and they were all MAGA. And it was very much this constant conversation of, if you want to have nice things, be a Republican. Look at what we have, look what we're doing for you. They say Republicans are cruel and heartless, but look, I'm taking care of you. If I was cruel and heartless, would I do that?
I really wanted acceptance with my father, and my father was very much into Fox News, so that was something that we would connect on.
I became heavily indoctrinated into trad wife culture. Household voting was something myself and my fellow trad wives in the church, we were all absolutely fine with household voting. And that
Right, so just to clarify, for people who don't know, household voting means the woman does not vote.
So the SAVE Act,
He looks a little bit like Beetle Moses.
in essence, is to take that right away from women.
In 2015 and 16, I felt that the two parties were the same, that democracy had failed most Americans, and that elected officials cared mostly about the wealthy and the powerful. And even though Trump ran as a Republican, I was very enticed by his outsider status.
See, I like to me, this is just like a human disqualification. Like, if this is something you have ever fallen for as an adult, like if this is something you've genuinely believed, I just don't think, like, I just don't think, I think that if democracy can work, it will be in spite of people like you. It's not even a moral condemnation. It's just like your relationship with reality is too tenuous for me to think you should be enfranchised.
The timelines you've given me, you guys were all sort of on the MAGA train to some extent in 2020, right? At that point.
Yes.
When you heard Trump claim that the election had been stolen, were any of you like, yeah, they stole this election, Trump won?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Up until fairly recently, when I left MAGA, I did believe that the election was stolen.
It's the mark of a need of a permanent caretaker. It's the, I mean, it's Aristotle, right? The natural slaves argument. Was that Aristotle or Socrates? I don't fucking know. I'm not a Greek philosophy guy. The natural slaves argument that some people are just, oh, that was Plato. Oh, damn, it was the third guy who I forgot about. That's crazy. It was Diogenes. That's not true. Yeah, he was cooking with that one.
Believe that the riots were actually, those were patriots.
They stormed the Capitol, and I'm like, well, yeah, I guess this is what you got to do if you have a corrupt, election process happening.
Until I actually switched off Fox News and started getting my news from other places, my information, that's when it's...
God, come on. What other places? Come on, is it like something boring like OAN or Newsmax, or are you talking about like Alex Jones? What are you talking about?
It finally hit.
Diversifying their news turned out to be a common factor in leaving
going
MAGA.
away from Fox to the left.
I met my now husband in 2021. He is a black man, and he saw a Trump flag on my profile, and he was like, hey, could you read White Fragility? I'd really love it if you would. And I did.
Oh, fuck. This is so embarrassing. Holy shit. This is going to make people fucking mad. Not us, like other people.
And it was very interesting because I was terrified of that book up until that point.
Oh, fuck.
And I read it, and it wasn't even as scary as I thought it was going to be. And they made me watch a documentary on January 6th, and I didn't even know what happened on January 6th prior.
This is what chuds write like racial cuckold fantasies about. Like my beautiful ex-wife matched with a bowl on Hinge, and then he was like, yeah, read White Fragility, bitch. And then she's like, okay, you're right, I'm gonna get a spade tattoo or something. Like, this is the stuff of nightmares for them, you know. Now she's a lib.
To the PBS documentary, and I looked at him and I said, Scott, did that really happen? And he was like, where have you been?
It's so hard for people Because I said, it's not that you're dumb, you were fooled. That's incredibly hard to admit.
Well,
We are in the United States of algorithms right now, and MAGA media is very efficacious, it's very effective, and it's very disciplined.
Stefania.
Yeah, well, okay, so I agree with that, but I cannot accept the idea that the kinds of propaganda that you fall for aren't reflective of you. We can do this infinite recursive sociology thing where we're like, well, nobody's actually morally at fault for anything they believe because everyone was just led to that conclusion via the circumstances of their life. Like, no Nazi is morally like responsible for being a Nazi because they were subjected to conditions that you could do this for anything, right? Like, at the end of the day, we have to accept some degree of personal responsibility for the stuff we believe, assuming you're an adult. If you're like a 14-year-old groomed into a cult, you can make exceptions. But like, again, you're all adults here. So we don't have to like go down this infinite path. We can blame you. And I don't buy the idea that a functioning person, a person with like a baseline level of political and social literacy could fall for this stuff, because MAGA propaganda is retarded. It's like the Nigerian prince scam. The reason those emails are so poorly worded, the reason there are so many typos, the reason it's so unbelievable is because they're trying to cut through selection bias. They don't want to waste their time on people smart enough to partially fall for a well-crafted scheme who will later wake up to it. They only want to talk to people stupid enough to fall for the obvious trap, because otherwise you'll figure it out later, you know? MAGA propaganda is like that. Like, it is for stupid people. You know?
Became disillusioned when MAGA beliefs clashed with her understanding of medical science.
When I really began to wake up was during COVID. Because as a trained respiratory therapist with 5 children, the mixed messaging was something like that finally broke through the cognitive dissonance, because I was hearing, wear masks. No, don't. They don't stop respiratory viruses, when I very much knew that they did.
Stefania would be forced to return to her work in respiratory therapy in 2022, when her husband contracted long COVID and could no longer work.
It all felt very karmic, like I was experiencing the aftermath of things I had voted for, you know, downplaying COVID only for it to then hit us.
It's not easy to believe something firmly and then come to the conclusion that you've been wrong for many years. Was that hard for you, just on a factual level, to say, oh, I believed things factually that I now realize were not true?
Yes, yeah. That was something that I just couldn't square, because I couldn't be wrong, because I consider myself intelligent, knowledgeable. There was no way that I was wrong about it, and I held that belief for a long time.
You know, I had believed that when Trump ran, that he would be somebody who would be different as an outsider. I think that
this guy especially is stupid. You can also tell from his head shape. Sorry, no hate. A little bit of hate. Yeah, I don't know. Surefire sign of intelligence. I can never be wrong. Look, I get everyone has. I understand everyone's biased here. I guess, and it's the same stuff that I say about More Perfect Union. I really, really, really wish we could, you know, kind of like peer in through the veil a little bit, like read the open book that is their minds. What attracted you to the movement in the first place? Because the Trump movement has never once held any ground to people who are not in some way prejudiced. Like, the whole premise of Trump from day one has been he's uncucked by civility and will say it like it is, and the thing that it is white nationalism. Like, from day one, 2016, 2020, 2024, every election, the main talking points, the main line has been, so even if you were very politically uneducated and you thought Trump really was some kind of like maverick, and to be clear, Trump was a maverick in the Republican Party, not ideologically, but socially. Trump didn't represent anything new for the Republican Party, xenophobia, racism, tribalism, whatever, ideologically. Socially, he was out from left field. It's just that doesn't mean anything. Like, yeah, okay, so he's not part of the insider neocon group or whatever. That doesn't change anything. Not really. It just means that he's going to beef with them before they fold and do whatever he wants. But in terms of what he pitches, like, is the dream of having an outcast as the president really so valuable to you that you're okay with the bigotry? Like that's fine? I just wish they were more honest about why they supported him.
He was correct in pointing out a lot of the flaws of our political system. It just turned out, unfortunately,
Like what?
that he didn't try to solve those or remedy those ills, that he exacerbated them.
Hearing you guys talk about MAGA and about supporting Trump, it sounds like you're talking often about like a cult that's damaging.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
But he's the president of the United States, and it's not a cult. It's like the dominant political ideology of the United States in this moment.
You know, we all have a need for community. Our species yearns.
It's not that they like Trump, it's that they hate the Dems. I promise you, and I mean this, I hate the Dems more than all of these people put together, because real hatred is informed. You have to know something to hate something. I guarantee you, it's not an excuse.
For a communal existence. And what MAGA does provide is a place where people feel seen and heard and recognized, and some of their very valid fears and concerns are acknowledged and validated. We used to say, we're not in the cult, the outside world is the cult, and we're not the crazies, the outside world are the
That's what all cults say, of course.
crazies.
The group says that leaving MAGA often means losing relationships with loved ones, but it also teaches them to approach those loved ones with empathy.
When I left MAGA, like I said, I kicked the door open and jumped through. I had a heart full of hate. I hated everything about Trump, everything about MAGA, everybody that was in MAGA. Just hate, 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 hate.
That's fine. That's good. That's fine. Keep it up.
Because I was pissed that I fell for it. So I would just go on the offensive and attack anybody and everybody that still supported it. And I've learned over time that that's not going to change anybody. In fact, it's going to push people over. So
I disagree. I think that the evidence overwhelmingly disagrees with this. I think this is like a very common like lib-pilled centrist bullshit line, like the best way to reach out to Trump supporters or any reactionary movement is to like be nice to them or whatever. I think this is completely untrue. I think that by and large these people are parasites that take advantage of your sympathy. They should be scorned and mocked and socially outcast. And then they will stop. They will stop because they will realize that they are choosing lives of misery for themselves, and better they shut up and not engage ever again, even if it means biting their tongue, than making them feel like they have any justification for believing the things they believe.
I've learned to be that empathy, that voice of concern, that caring voice.
But that wouldn't work either. It literally does. It actually does. For essentially every shift in social acceptability of bigotry over time, the way you tamp down on bigotry is not by reaching out a hand and listening to the stories of people who are bigoted. You just silence them and you crush them socially, and you cut them off if they express themselves. You fire them, you just ruin their lives, and eventually they shut up. We already did this for racism. Back in the 1950s and early 1960s, it was extremely common for white people to just be openly racist, not in like a, oh, pull up your pants thug kind of way, but in like an extremely open, just hard R, like they're different than us way. And over the course of a couple of decades, that went from being fairly commonplace to being completely socially unacceptable, to the point that you could ruin your life by expressing that sentiment. It worked, at least for a while. It works. You just have to socially crush it. It's not, I'm not trying to be like an edge. It literally works. Like that's like, imagine if in France after World War II, all of the Nazi sympathizers, the people who were like Vichy France, they were like on board with Nazi occupation of France. Imagine if after the Allies liberated France, all those people were like treated with kid gloves, Oh, I want to hear your story. Why were you okay with the Nazi armies invading France and occupying it and using its like installing a puppet government and using it to no, the Nazi sympathizers after the the liberation of France were treated like dog shit, which they should have been, They kind of were, though. In some places in government, the bureaucrats were treated deferentially. This happened in Germany as well. But by and large, socially, they were not treated well. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with social stigma. Like, it's good. It's socially necessary.
You can do this, I did it.
As part of leaving MAGA, there's really two outcomes that occur. The first is renouncing the lies.
This approach doesn't work. People should listen to what scientists say about handling cultists, but it's not a cult. It's not actually a cult. We say MAGA is a cult colloquially to describe how delusional they are, but cults, by and large, grow by lying to people and grooming them into it. The MAGA movement is not like, it doesn't operate that way. Everyone who's in the MAGA movement has not been personally inducted into it by some charismatic, dishonest cult leader. They fall for algorithmic schemes, admittedly, but the pole of the movement is open bigotry. The premise behind MAGA, the things MAGA supports, are not hidden. They're open. Oh, what? Trump is the cult leader? Oh, fuck. This might be like a level 2 discussion. And because a lot of people are watching right now, it's like a level 1. We have like a level 1 audience right now. Okay. Categorically, there is a difference between a 12-year-old with Republican parents who has spent their entire life being given a very specific worldview, who never really had another chance. That 12-year-old might not have had the ability to encounter different viewpoints. Maybe they grew up in like a tight religious community, or they grew up in like a rural area. They didn't know many people. They didn't have access to the internet or whatever. Like, it's very possible they had no choice. I'm not morally impugning these people. But the vast majority, and I mean the vast majority, of people who are in the MAGA movement were not groomed into it. The MAGA movement said, hey, we stand for racism. And these people were like, fuck yes. That's the thing. When they tell you that they were soothed, they were lured into the MAGA movement by the sweet song of like maverick opposition to the deep state, they're lying to you. They are lying. The Nazis did this too. After the fall of the Third Reich, a bunch of Nazis were like, oh, well, I was just like excited by the reinvigoration of the country. They were lying. Because the real reason they were excited about Nazism was heavily tied in the fact that they believed a wide variety of things. The supremacy of the Aryan race, the idea that Jews undermined the Germans in World War I and caused like unfavorable signing terms for the Treaty of Versailles. They're making it sound like they were just victims, but they were adults who made a conscious choice to join a hate movement. You know? All hate movements have some degree of zealousness that you could call colloquially a cult, but that does not mean that they are like actual members of cults. They are hate movements. So yeah, you have to be like, social stigma is what works here. It has always been what works. Also, yeah, have you like encountered a Trump supporter? They're like entirely motivated by spite. Like, one of the things that you notice about members of cults, by and large, is that there's a kind of like recalcitrance. The members of actual cults may turn a blind eye to you. They might not listen to you, but they think they're the saved ones and you're not the saved ones. Like, even if they're being groomed into bad beliefs, they think like, well, I'm blessed because I'm on the inside and they're cursed because they're on the outside. Like, there's like, I'm part of the elevated group or whatever. But MAGA is and always has been motivated by open spite and hatred. They're the most contemptible people in the fucking world. They're awful. Have you talked to them? Have you argued with them? They're not like, oh, yes, I've seen the light of MAGA and I hope one day you'll join us too. They're fucking awful. They're terrible people. They're incredibly, I mean, for lack of a less juvenile term, mean-spirited. They're not like cult members. So I listen, I agree that in a colloquial sense, MAGA is a cult, but I reject this line as soon as it's being used to like morally exonerate them in any way, because I think that's their excuse, you know? Like they want that to be the narrative. You know? Sort of like the KKK with a belief system, but it's more like a community of like-minded individuals. Look, people chose to join the KKK. You know why the KKK fell apart? Because of overwhelming social stigma. Not because of, like, hand-holding to every KKK member.
Falsehoods and conspiracies of MAGA politics. And the second part of it is that someone who leaves MAGA decides to build up rather than tear down democracy by making the continued case that we agree more than we disagree. You know, we're doing a billboard campaign right now across the country, and the message on the billboard is very simple, welcoming, and inviting, and it says, having doubts, you are not alone. And we have more people than ever.
Chad Vosh is trying to describe how to meaningfully disincentivize bad behavior on a large scale. This isn't how to change your dad's mind. Well, the thing is, you guys also haven't changed your dad's mind. Like, I'm also saying this on a small scale. You would have more luck changing the minds of your MAGA parents by saying, fuck off, I'm going no contact, you're a piece of shit, than you would by trying to, like, argue with them every Thanksgiving and make them see the light. MAGA people, that movement, they're just bad people. They suck. They're bad on every level. They're morally and intellectually deficient. They're not like us. They're motivated by an entirely different set of priors. They don't want the same thing but disagree on the methods. They just want the world to be worse. Just in particular for the people they don't like. They love arguing. They love being the victim. The best thing you can do is just make them suffer through your absence until they change or die alone. This is overwhelmingly the case, by the way. It sounds like I'm trying to be like a you know, edgelord, but this is genuinely the case most of the time.
Who are in MAGA coming to us, asking us for help leaving.
Do you guys think that this group that you are a part of plays a role in this political moment, in the midterm specifically? Do you think it might have a measurable effect on the way that things go moving forward?
Every time we as a nation have been in a crisis situation, the way that we've gotten through it, the way we've pushed forward and progressed is by forming unlikely but necessary alliances. And everybody who leaves MAGA, there's a chance to form an unlikely but necessary alliance with people who have left. We are all living proof that it is possible to change.
I just think stigma is what leads to that change. Generally. There are lots of people in both chats right now who are like, yup, I have MAGA family members and they are literally like wastes of time to talk to. I'm so over this. It's been a decade, man. It's been a decade. It's like 10 years of this. 10 years of having to hear like, just love and peace, kindness and patience, and they'll come over. Like, it hasn't worked. They're still fucking here. It's still happening. More people need to think like Daryl Davis. Are you referring to that black guy who tried to like reach out to members of the KKK? You know it didn't work, right? This is one of those like liberal myths. The idea that like the best way to de-radicalize racists is finding like a friendly black guy to go and talk to them or whatever, which, I mean, good luck finding a black guy willing to do that or whatever. But like there has been a ton of criticism of his methods and outcomes because like if it was that easy, you know, I'm not saying I dislike Daryl Davis. I really feel like he's often used as an excuse to justify bad like bad social policy, you know. Can we see some of that criticism? Okay. If interactions with black people were enough to dissuade racists, how did the Confederacy happen? Like, appeals to empathy are great, but they need to be, it's a carrot and stick situation. You, like, appeals to empathy can work, but they have to work in the context of, like, what you're doing is unacceptable. And not just you saying it. Like, you saying it's unacceptable is one thing. Like, it needs to be really socially reaffirmed. There is, like, still not been any, like, defeater to the big, I guess, like, supporting piece of evidence to my argument, which is that racism over the course of a couple of decades went from being extremely widespread, commonplace, and socially acceptable to being extremely stigmatized, and this led to an enormous reduction in racist beliefs. Like, people now are much less racist than they were back in the 1950s. People in the 1980s were much less racist than they were back in the 1950s. There was a massive, massive shift, and it was not made through, like, individual coddling. It was made socially unacceptable to be racist. A reduction in racist beliefs or racists lying low. See, that's the great thing. When racists lie low, their ideology dies out. That's the point. A society in which racists have to shut the fuck up is one where racist beliefs aren't reaffirmed, and then they become less common. That's the point. Like, there were less Nazism in Germany after the fall of the Third Reich, not because a bunch of people who supported the Third Reich magically changed their minds on it, but because it became completely unacceptable to express pro-Third Reich opinions. Therefore, children weren't indoctrinated. We've talked about this before. There was a longitudinal, or sorry, like an intergenerational survey done in Germany back in the 1960s that found that a fuck ton of people who were in their 30s or 40s when Hitler was in power still supported Nazi beliefs. A lot of them, like nearly a majority. Even in the 1960s, 15 or more years after Hitler killed himself, there were still lots of older Germans saying, well, it would have worked if it wasn't for X, or like, he had good ideas, da-da-da. But when the results of this survey were made widely known, they were made public, and younger Germans saw this, and they were like, what the fuck? All of our fucking parents are still Nazis? The younger Germans didn't become Nazis. Why? Because the parents were shamed out of expressing it. The parents literally lived under Allied occupation, or Soviet occupation on the east side, but the study was done on the west side. And for that reason, you couldn't be an open pro-Nazi. Yes, I know, Operation Paperclip, but I'm talking about the general population here. And because of that, those ideas didn't really propagate. Nazism dropped not because everyone was convinced out of it, but because it was made socially unacceptable. You know, racism's not natural. People have to be taught it. The Ku Klux Klan, the Deep South, was systematically destroyed by federal prosecutors crushing them, not by some kumbaya bullshit. God willing, I wish we still did that. If only, if only. It was forced upon them, though. It wasn't a social change. It was law. It was both. It was law and also overwhelming social stigma. But if you're suggesting that we need to apply law to make being MAGA intolerable, I completely agree. Thank you. The Republican Party is a terrorist organization. How does the technique of introducing diversity, like big cities being melting pots, to make them less racist through exposure mend social outcasting? Because because you can't be racist when you live in a melting pot. Like, you can get away with being anti-black if you live in bumfuck nowhere, you know, Oklahoma. You're not even around any black people. But you can't really be openly anti-black in the middle of New York City. At least there are significant social drawbacks to doing so. Not just with black people, but with a lot of the non-black people there too. Which means you have to shut up. And, you know, the human brain is like an engine. The more you express or feed a feeling, the more you're likely to feel it. The more you feel anger, the more likely you are to feel anger. But if you don't have the ability to accept, or sorry, to have your racism accepted by the people around you, if you live in an environment where anti-racism is socially prioritized and privileged, you will slowly mold to that environment. Not because of some kumbaya bullshit, not because people are reaching out to you and asking heartfelt to tell them why you feel the need to be racist or whatever, but because you have to shut the fuck up. And over time, you can change. But it requires overwhelming social stigma. The evidence for this is extremely strong, by the way. This is not like conjecture. This is how it works. Generally speaking, people want to be liked by the people around them. You know? It's the reason why there are a lot of edgy teenagers who turn into little Nazi fuckwits if you just put them in like Discord servers where they're groomed into being Nazis. But if you took them out of it and just like had them interact with people in the real world, like normal people day to day, they probably wouldn't be, because being a Nazi is actually pretty socially deleterious. So it's like actually a bit of a hamper to normal interactions with people, you know? So we have to create environments where it's completely unacceptable. Yes. It is a cult, but it's also not a cult. Very good. It do be like that, Mr. Stansel. Speaking of a deleterious social environment, Florida Governor GOP primary, ages 18 to 34 only. James Fishback at 51%. Good thing there are no young people in Florida, huh? Let alone young Republicans. Fuck, I'm in Florida? Why? They also don't turn out? Yeah. Still bad? Well, any Republican aged 18 to 34 is probably a neo-Nazi. Not an exaggeration. Like, that's true. That's by and large, that's true. Yeah, if you're a Republican in that age group, you are probably like some flavor of Groyper. What the hell are you people posting about? Sometimes people are born in places? Yeah, but Florida? Floridian here, I just know so many little fascist freaks excited with this fucker. God. Yeesh. I think one of the best contemporary pieces of evidence for my point on this is that Trump's lowest point of support at any point was after January 6th. After January 6th, Trump did something so bad that even a bunch of his hardline supporters were like, oof, yeah, okay, and they dropped him. The problem is, the Democrats then showed it was actually totally okay to have done January 6th. There were no consequences. January 6th should have been the end of the Republican Party, at least in its current form. But it wasn't. There were no consequences, not real ones. Maybe a couple years for the average person who stormed the Capitol. Nothing, really. And as a consequence, it became socially acceptable to be Republican again. You could not be publicly pro-Trump right after J6. Even Fox News, even OAN and Newsmax were hedging their bets. They were like, ooh, this one makes my tummy hurt. It wasn't because they had suddenly changed their mind about Trump. It's because they understood that in that moment, it was socially unacceptable to be pro-Trump. Stigma wins, not genuinely convincing them. If they could be convinced by moral arguments, they wouldn't be a Republican to begin with. They're not susceptible to those. But then over time, of course, it switched because, you know, it wasn't actually a problem. feel like a lot of people don't realize how stressful it is to try to win over people like that. They love you trying. There's nothing a conservative loves more than watching liberal friends try to reach them. They love it. It's pathetic. They love it. Everyone knows conservatives are wretched and terrible to hang out with. Selfish, stupid, unfunny. They love their liberal friends, and they love arguing to defend themselves. They love being the contrarian little brats that get the disproportionate amount of attention because, yeah, they're divas. They're attention whores, you know? They love the attention. Call your MAGA friends idiots. Don't have MAGA friends. Trump's approval is lower now than J6, I'm pretty sure. I don't think so, no. His approval, it's not counted in the ranks of like presidential approval because Biden was inaugurated like right after J6, but Trump's approval in like the January, February 2021 it was abysmally low. Really, really, really low. And he got dropped by so many corporations and newscasters and individual oligarchs dropped him, but then later picked him up again. You know? Nasty business. All right, well. How many young white men do you think are fascists? I don't know. Aren't like fucking 15% of young white men Republicans or whatever? Haven't Republicans completely lost the youth vote now that it's the party of pedophilia in Israel? I mean, it always has been, but now that it's openly the party of pedophilia in Israel? Not that many. All right. How are we doing? Good? Nice. Playing Sulfur? I do not know what that is. Working and jerking? Playing Wizards 101. Didn't they close that? Or am I thinking of like Toontown or whatever? I understand hate can be used as a tool for positive change, but doesn't this feel like hateful? First of all, I hate Republicans. This is true. But what I'm advocating for isn't necessarily hate. It's overwhelming social stigma. Do you think it's bad to be overwhelmingly stigmatizing towards, say, open pro-slavery advocacy? Republicans in 2024 campaigned. They campaigned on deporting 20 million people. It would have been, had they been able to actually pull that number off, one of the largest ethnic cleansings in human history. Do you think it's like, I guess my question is, do you think it's hateful to be overwhelmingly stigmatizing towards that position? Like, do you think that's like is that hateful? Were the Union soldiers that went down south hateful? Were the Allied soldiers that went over to Normandy hateful? I mean, maybe they were hateful, but I don't think they were being motivated by hate. I think, because calling it hateful implies that it's a born of some kind of like emotional bias. You can hate anyone or anything without good reason. There's a really good reason here. Yeah, that's the real question. Are they hateful enough? That's the real question. Maybe, Elidius. Can you give your opinion on these two hypothetical countries? No. Ugh, whatever, Masaigo. Someone didn't vet these documents. One of them shows China was using cyber ops to harm Biden. I mean, that makes sense. Trump's tariff bullshit has improved China's geopolitical standing quite a bit, massively. If you have MAGA relatives who talked about Muslims like mine did, you know they can't be in society until they change. Yeah, literally. I don't like the idea of that being framed as hateful. Like, it's hateful to overwhelmingly socially condemn bigotry. I don't know. Like, I mean, maybe you can hate the bigots, but it's really not being motivated by hate. There's like a pretty genuine utilitarian assessment going on under the surface there, you know? If anything, it seems like kowtowing to their propaganda, like Nazis claim that the left just hates white people. The idea that all anti-bigot political action is being motivated by reciprocal hatred. Like, oh, maybe the Nazis hate non-white people, but the anti-Nazis hate white people. Like, I don't think it, you know, I don't think it plays out like that, in my humble opinion. All right. Well, with all that being said, I'm looking through the tabs and I don't see any. What do we got on? We got it? Think we can wait until tomorrow before we cover any more pressing news? El Nino? Yeah, that'll still be happening tomorrow. I think there's like a war on? Maybe. Iran live UA map. Maybe. Yeah, they're having fun with it. They're having a ball. Yeah, I think I'll just read donos tomorrow. What type of rice do you prefer for weight loss? Brown rice. Get that fiber. All right. Everyone take care. And I'll see you guys tomorrow morning or thereabouts. Peace.